Hello and welcome back to the channel. So a lot has been happening over the past few days in the comic book nerd world, what with all the awesome new revelations and trailers coming out of the DC Fandom event. Maybe the news of this other thing got a bit lost in the shuffle, but Young Justice just released the first 2 episodes of Season 4 on HBO Max. So this is going to be a short video just pointing out some highlights and voicing some thoughts about those episodes without getting too much into the plot or any spoilery type situations. So they almost immediately begin with a 1-year time jump since the events of Season 3. Connor and McGann still live in the ranch house in Happy Harbor, where they host the members of the Outsiders. The previously made teams are still a thing. The actual Justice League, currently led by Khal Durham, once known as Aqualad, but assuming the full mantle of Aquaman since his balls dropped. No, just kidding. Since the last season, after Arthur, the original Aquaman, went to, rule and administrate his whole globe-spanning underwater nation, Young Justice is still the stealth undercover arm of the Justice League, still led by Tim Drake as Robin. And then there's the Outsiders. They're all the newer, more emo, more younger team created by Beast Boy last season. So right away, a few of the Outsiders zip off to Mars for Connor and McGann's wedding. Most of the plot of these first 2 episodes center on this wedding and the events on Mars. There's a kind of funny scene as they're leaving when Beast Boy has Ship, their sentient Martian spacecraft, morph its shape into something a bit more Star Trek-ish. So speaking of the superhero Martians, they, on the show, for story reasons, changed Martian Manhunter, John Jones, from the sole survivor of a big planet-wide calamity into just a dude who ended up on Earth in 1955, and there's a whole backstory. But Mars is still there. They did this, no doubt, so that they could add McGann, otherwise known as Miss Martian. All the other superheroes were having their young proteges get on the roster of Young Justice, so they thought it'd be a really good creative idea to add Miss Martian. I agree, it was a good idea. So in this canon, they had a big reveal that Miss Martian was actually a white Martian, as opposed to the green Martian that we're all familiar with through John Jones. It turns out that the white Martians were kind of the lower caste, almost slave caste on Mars. They got into a whole lot of crap with that on the show. This season, they introduce other types of Martians as well. There are red Martians, who are generally the royalty class, and then there's yellow Martians, who don't start out yellow Martians. They become yellow Martians. They're the priest caste. It's a whole thing. You'll have to watch the show. My thoughts. It's so good when a show has a chance to expand their world building, so I definitely loved seeing this. But then, as a lot of answers tend to do, it opened up so many more questions. So Mars has been sitting there this whole time. The whole time humanity was dragging itself from the primordial ooze, its neighboring planet has been full of super advanced, superpowered beings. And yes, they are superpowered as all hell. John Jones, the Martian Manhunter, it's not like he's superpowered for being Martians. He's a regular dude by Martian standards. They all have varying degrees of telepathy, telekinesis, flight by using said telekinesis, super strength, shape-shifting, density shifting. And, alright, so have the governments of Earth known about Mars for many years or decades, with the Martians just being really aloof and isolationist? Or has Martian Manhunter had to maintain a big lie all these many, many years, telling Earth the story that he was the last of his kind, similar to his comic book story? If the world didn't know of Mars and its inhabitants in the past, they certainly seem to know now. Part of the initial plot of this season involves Earth and Mars trying to build a permanent Zeta Tube portal between the 2 planets for instantaneous travel. The cited reason for this cooperation is to strengthen both planets against the impending nefarious invasion that they expect to come from Darkseid and Apocalypse. So Earth knows, right? Maybe. Perhaps maybe just some of the bigger governments know about Mars. They didn't really go into that much detail. Then again, it's a half-hour cartoon that usually does an amazing job of hitting the details, especially when compared to most other series, whether live action or cartoon. So can't complain. There was the return of McGann's terrorist brother Malefak, who we last saw in season 3, episode 5. They also expand a great deal more on both John Jones and Megan's family backstory quite a bit. We get to meet McGann's parents, dad being a white Martian, and mom, who is the sister of the Martian Manhunter. She's a greenie. So we meet one of her sisters, making that the second of her 17 siblings that they've shown. They did say earlier on the show that of her 17 siblings, only 2 of them turned out to be white Martians, the other 15 being green. McGann, she's still rocking the whole white Martian look that she began wearing the previous season, but unlike last year, she's not all bald and lumpy, and frankly fugly as all hell, which really never made any real sense. If she wanted to be all looks don't matter, Connor better love me for my true form, then she really should have been walking around in her full-on white Martian, all insectile and scary as fuck form. Instead, she chooses this amalgamated, more humanoid hybrid form that has absolutely zero to do with her actual appearance and seems to be just kind of a riff on how her Uncle John seems to look most of the time. In episode 1, we have a scene where somebody is spying on the Happy Harbor house. They show very little of the Watcher, but what we do see is one of the hands holding the binoculars has a ring. Now, those in the know of comics and such will recognize that as a Legion of Superheroes ring, pointing to some really interesting plot possibilities for the upcoming season. The Legion of Superheroes, it's a future-based group of heroes from around the 30th or 31st century who modeled themselves after what to them was the historical Justice League of America. Every one of the Legion members was given a Legion ring. Not only was this a membership Super Club decoder ring, but it also granted flight to any and all members who may not already possess that power, both in atmosphere and in space. Now, for the casual watcher, you're probably not familiar with the Legion of Superheroes, but you do see a flight ring in use when you see Booster Gold. His whole deal is that he's a relatively normal guy from the future who decided he wanted to go back in time after stealing a bunch of his modern technology, come back in time, use that technology, which is now going to be super advanced, and become a superhero. One of the appropriated items was a Legion flight ring that he got from a museum. So, the Legion of Superheroes, first appearing in comics in 1958, they were very much a product of that time, being kind of silly and cheesy. One fun aspect of their appearance in comics throughout the ages is that they tend to retain that cheesiness. Many of their powers are a little bit silly, their names are goofy as hell, generally being structured to be something boy or something girl, with the occasional kid being thrown in. So examples of this include Bouncing Boy, Colossal Boy, Star Boy, Triplicate Girl. And here's a fun fact. In 1966, the Legion of Superheroes added some new members onto the roster, one of which was the Karate Kid. That's right. Entire decades before Danielson picked up his chopsticks, DC Comics was all over that intellectual property. So in episode 2, we get a little more info on the involvement of the Legion of Superheroes, with 3 of them showing up on Mars, once again spying on the outsiders. I was only able to actually recognize one of them, so of course I cheated and watched the voice credits at the end. And so what we end up seeing is Phantom Girl, Saturn Girl, and Chameleon Boy, all regular members of the Legion of Superheroes at one time or another. It's still very much a mystery what they're doing on Mars in their past, tailing and spying on the outsiders. Final thought. This season is called Young Justice Phantoms. I don't know why. I have no idea. If this is common knowledge amongst the fan base, well, sorry, I missed that news tidbit. The only somewhat possible thing that I've seen is that one of the Legion members is, as I mentioned earlier, Phantom Girl. This seems to me to be more of a coincidence than any real explanation, though. So I'm not quite sure. So anyway, that does it for our video for the day. Thanks for tuning in. Feel free to lambaste me in the comments if I got anything wrong, or maybe if you know why the show is called Phantoms. Peace.